Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. So I'm gonna save myself some editing time today and just do a full-on painting without any editing. So this is gonna be a long one. Hopefully not too long, but I am not known for a fast painter, so this might take an hour or so. So here we have a portrait and her name is Valerie. A very beautiful girl. So she got this wonderful facial structure, and I think the angle of this shot is also quite interesting. So I decided to do a painting of this. So let's see how it will end up. So first thing first, we are going to do a drawing. Now the drawing for a portrait is very, very important. So I'm gonna try to just get like a very basic size of a head first. I'll try to make it just a little bit bigger than I thought, because I have a tendency as I correct my drawing, it's gonna get smaller and smaller. So I'll try to start a little bit bigger. So in the very beginning, I'm just using a dull 4B pencil and just draw very, very lightly. I'm just holding the pencil way back like this. Okay, I'm barely applying any pressure. Just let the pencil just gonna glide across the paper. I'm just trying to make some mark. Okay, and then try to capture the basic gesture of the face. So this will be about the center line here, and this will be her head. It's a little bit tilted. Well, she might not be tilted, but the camera is a little bit tilted. It's kind of like a from bottom up. So we're going to try to get that alignment there. So this is going to be the brow line, and up here is the hairline. So let me see if I can. Okay, so up here is the hairline, down here is the brow line, and then down here, so 1/3 and 1/3 down here will be the bottom of her nose, and then another 1/3 that will be the bottom of her chin. So that's the basic head proportion for you. Now her head is slightly tilted up, so there will be a little bit of foreshortening, but we are not going to make it too extreme. I believe this is a selfie camera, so the perspective is going to be a little bit more extreme, a little bit more distorted, because it's a wide angle lens. So here's the forehead, structure of the forehead, and here's just a really quick eye socket. This is probably where her eye is going to be, the line here. Okay, and here's her cheekbone right here that connects down to her chin. And now let's give her nose a little bit of a structure. My eyeball the tip of her nose will be somewhere around here, and the bottom plane of her nose, she got like this very defined nose, so it'll be very interesting to draw and fun to paint. So bottom of her nose and the chin, halfway in between here, is going to be the bottom of her lips. So that'll be a bottom of her lips, and I estimate the corner of her lips around here. Okay, so again, nothing is final yet. I'm just trying to get her structure and proportion as we go. Okay, so the alignment is a little bit off, I think. Okay, this is actually, we don't have to make it that tilted. Around here, I think it's fine. Yeah, try to have this corner up just a little bit. So drawing for portrait is definitely not the easiest thing, but we definitely need to take a little bit of time, try to get things correct. at least relatively correct without a lot of distortion and problem. Otherwise it's gonna look weird. So one of her eyeballs here, the other eyeball somewhere around here. Actually, yeah, something like that. Yeah, actually a little bit more to the left here. Okay, so the corner of her eyes, I'm gonna try to measure it somewhere between the corner of the nose here, the wing of the nose, and the lips, so somewhere in between here. So this is the corner of her eye. Okay, so just very quickly here. So her eyeball be somewhere around here. Okay, so the other corner is hidden behind the nose, so we're not gonna see that one. But we do see the other corner, so somewhere around here. Okay, so again, everything is kind of a mess right now, and as we tighten up our drawing, it's going to be a little bit, I'm just gonna adjust it a little bit more. So the hair coming down like so. Okay, so her scarf is here. So like just as I expected, right? My initial head is like this big, but as I start to tighten my drawing, it's gonna get smaller. It's just something that I noticed that I tend to do. So I try to make it a little bit bigger when I was doing it initially, because you don't really know how big the head is going to be, because the relationship of the width and height can be a little bit hard to estimate. So try to get a little bit bigger, and as you try to figure out the proportion and everything, it's gonna come together a little bit. So just give yourself a little bit more room for error and for adjustment. Okay, so she's wearing this nice leather jacket. I'm not gonna give too much detail on that. Focus should be her face, not her clothes, but something like that. Okay, a little bit of the shoulder will be fine. Hair coming down here. This hair goes down, resting on her shoulder. This one here as well. Okay, so we got like a very rough basic head, and just judging by it right now, it definitely got some shape that I need to fix, but let's try to clean up some of the line for now. And because we draw really light, it should be pretty easy to get rid of some of the marks. So I will just leave out some landmarks right now, and I'm gonna come back with a sharper mechanical pencil and really start to make some more tighter drawings. Okay, so let's continue, and let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so looking at that, so I'm going to try to start to make things just a little bit tighter. So I'll start with the left eyes here, her right eyes. So here, the bottom of her eyes here, okay. The upper eyelid, okay. That kind of wraps around her eyeball, and we see a little bit of the iris. Not a little bit, I mean we see the iris pretty clearly right here. So the center, get the pupil in, and I think this should be a good place. Okay, and let's define her nose just a little bit as we come down. Okay, this comes down, root of the nose, and we see a little bit of a nostril here, We have the wing of the nose here. Okay. And okay, careful with the alignment. Try to get them lined up nicely. Okay, so her other nostril here. Now, when we paint, we're not going to make nostril that big of a deal. Okay, it just kind of need to be there. But yeah, we're not gonna make too dark, but we'll get to that when we are actually painting. Let me erase some of the lines here. It's not really necessary. So just really lightly go over the drawing with the knitter eraser. Okay. Okay, so now we're making a tighter drawing. Okay. Now I erase a lot of those construction lines, but it's good to keep in mind of those structures. They are going to come into play quite a bit when we are starting to paint. So just because I start to erase them doesn't mean I forget about them. Okay, so let's go over here, and this is the corner of the eyes. So let's see a little bit of that curvatures on her eyes. Very clearly, she got this beautiful eyes here, and the lower eyelid sort of wraps around a little bit. It's a little bit flatter because we're looking from the bottom. So a little bit more curvature on the top eyelid here, just because of the angle that we're looking at. And let's get the iris in, and the pupil again, slightly upward. And so again, try to measure the alignment. Okay, one thing that students sometimes tend to make is that they forget the alignment as they get into the details. So you got one eye a little bit higher, one eye a little bit lower, and it starts to end up looking a little bit awkward. And I make that mistake from time to time as well, because when I really get into the detail, I start to lose my sight of the whole picture. So it's very important that you constantly double check your alignment, your placement, the size and stuff. So painting portrait, drawing portrait, is not the easiest thing. I really like it, but it's definitely a lot harder when it comes to the drawing part. Definitely a lot harder than doing landscape and just scenery in general, because even for something like a building or a car, sometimes if you got a little bit things here and there a little bit off, one wheel a little bit higher than the other, if it's not too bad, it's not too far off, it's still going to look okay. It's just going to look like a loose painting. But for portrait, because it's so sensitive, we're looking at people every day, a little bit off in the alignment can really make a difference, can really make things look a little bit awkward, a little bit weird. And the thing is that a lot of time when you're making really subtle mistakes, you can't really tell, but you feel something is wrong. Like when people are looking at it, they feel something is wrong about the portrait, but they can't quite tell what it is. So you got this funny feeling that it doesn't really look natural. This portrait doesn't really look natural, but you can't really tell what it is. So our job as an artist is trying to identify those and really trying to focus and get those in. Okay, her right cheekbone here, right cheek here, and it comes down. Okay, so a little bit of hints of the chin here. Okay, we don't need to draw outlines all over the place. Okay, so like her jawline, just do some indication here, and that should be good enough. I don't need to complete the line here. Okay, it's a good habit to do, just not to finish everything, not to outline everything. Okay, just trying to indicate the edges and stuff. Because when we are painting, the worst thing you want to do in a portrait painting is starting to paint lines instead of painting edges and shapes. Okay, so here's the hair. There. Okay, I think this is looking not bad actually. Okay. I'll make her forehead just a little bit higher than the photo, because again, I believe the selfie camera can make the head looks a little bit more distorted. So the forehead, in reality, in natural human eyesight, should be just a little bit taller. So just a little bit closer to the original proportion of 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. And again, there's a little bit foreshortening, so this is a little bit taller. It's a little bit more distant than the bottom of the nose to the eyebrow, and from the eyebrow to the forehead is just a tiny little bit shorter because of the foreshortening, but shouldn't be that extreme though, especially if we look at it in a safe distance, a safe social distance, unless we really go up to her and look really close at her. And she's not gonna feel that comfortable if we actually stand that close to her, unless you are very intimate to her, which I am not. So the only person I really look that close is my wife and my kid, right? Like when I wake up next to my wife, I see her very, very closely. So my eyes can only focus on a part of her. So it's almost kind of like a wide angle lens where I'm looking at her that closely. Some other part of her face become a little bit distorted because it's outside my cone of vision. But that's only if when you're looking at somebody that close, like really, really up close. Typically when we're looking at someone in a normal social distance, it's not going to be that extreme. Okay. Okay, so here, erase a little bit, and the drawing's actually going quite smooth this time. There are times when I'm doing some drawings and it just doesn't turn out right, and I just keep fixing and fixing and fixing until I was like, you know what, just forget it, I'll start over. And it definitely happened quite a bit. But this one I feel is going quite all right. And again, time pass a lot faster for me than to you if you're just looking at me drawing this thing. It's not really exciting when you're looking at somebody drawing a portrait. Okay, so hair here, and the flap for jacket. Okay. Okay, I think this is actually quite decent. I'm gonna erase some of the construction lines, some of the messy lines, and only the part that I really need them to be there will remain. So the landmark position of the eyes and the nose and the mouth, it's gonna start to look like a little bit like outline, but it's not. It's just marks that will kind of serve me as a guide as I paint, so I know where do I paint each and every feature, so I don't need to figure those out as I paint. But I am still looking at it as a three-dimensional form. I'm still looking at it as a three-dimensional structure. So when I'm starting to paint, I'm actually going to paint faces and planes and structures and so on. But right now, I'm just gonna clean up some of the line work. We don't want a lot of dirty graphite as we paint, so the clothes is fine. Clothes can be a little bit dirty, but mostly her face. I want her face to look a little bit cleaner so that when I paint the watercolor on her face, it's gonna look better. Okay, so I'm gonna start painting. Try to clean up just a little bit more line work before we get started, but everything else should be ready to go. So I have my portrait palette here. I keep it separate from my landscape palette just because it'll be a little bit easier for me to work with. So I have my warm pile here, my cool pile, and down here is going to be my dark pile. I will show you what I mean real quick, but I'm going to mix a basic skin tone. So it's going to be a little bit more red with a little bit of orange right here. So mostly red, and over here I'm gonna work out just a little bit of cerulean blue here, just to have establish some basic warm and cool tone here. Okay. And just a little bit more. Okay, so a little bit more here. A little touch of cadmium yellow here. Okay. So what I'm gonna do right now is just give it an overall first wash. So again, just a little bit more color. First wash, just the color of the light, same thing as the landscape, just a little bit more careful. That being said, just get started, a little bit more water. Otherwise it's gonna dry too fast. Okay, we'll start with the nose and just go for it. Okay, just very simply, just give it a nice big wash, and I'll paint around the eye a little bit, but you can escape, you can get out the skin tone. And because this side of the hair is going to be a little bit darker, so okay. Now just a little bit more yellow up here. So very quickly, okay, we want a nice coverage and we don't want any hard edges. Okay. And here, again, there's some scarf there. We don't have to worry about that just yet. I'm gonna add a little bit of cool color here on the side. Give a little bit of like a neutral tone for the eye. Now don't leave anything white. We don't really need that here, but do want a nice good coverage here. Okay. And if we kind of squeeze our brush, we can lift some of the paint. We just need a little bit of that. We don't need too much. So maybe the tip of the nose. Leave a little bit of the paint here and here, like the tip area, cheekbone. There's some light. Okay, make sure you squeeze out your brush. Okay, you don't want a lot of water in it. It's gonna seep back in and create some unpleasant edges. Okay, and I think while at it, we can already start to just paint a little bit of the color for the hair. Okay, so a little bit of yellow ochre. She got this nice blonde hair, so let's just get that in there. Save a little bit of time while we're waiting for the first wash here to dry. And, oops. Okay, a little bit more water. It's a little bit too dry. The first wash. Keep it nice and fluid. Okay, her blonde hair is gonna be lighter than most of the clothes, so we can just paint it out. Okay. Have a little bit of water and just loosen that down here. Her scarf is kind of purplish. I'll add a little bit of carmine to that skin tone right here, and I'll just paint that in. Okay, a little bit too saturated, so just gonna add a little bit of water. And I actually don't mind it kind of blend into the skin tone a little bit. We can separate those later. Okay. Okay, some more water. See a nice bead here. Okay, just keep your brush kind of on the paper, swirl it around a little bit. Okay, instead of doing this, okay, try not to do that. Okay, have a nice and swirl, just let that wash settle in. So that's our first wash. Okay, this first wash, just color of the light, and when it's dry, it's gonna dry a lot lighter. Okay, it's already starting to become lighter, and there's that stage that you have nothing in the background. The background is white paper, so you're gonna feel like this is a lot darker than the background and doesn't feel right. But after you start to put in a second layer, which is your middle value, you know, some of the details in the eyes, you immediately gonna start to see the difference. So I'm gonna try to feel my wash a little bit. Still a little bit damp. So while I'm waiting for it to be a little bit drier, I'm just going to mix some colors for my second wash. Okay, so for the second wash, it's going to be just the middle value. I will have a little bit more, still pretty warm, but I will add a little bit of burnt sienna here. Should use a bigger brush to mix that color. It'll be a little bit easier. Okay, a little bit of burnt sienna. Still some red. Keep the skin tone more on the red side, okay, rather than having too much orange and yellows. Not gonna look good. Okay, now a little bit of yellow ochre. Okay. Okay, so I think I waited enough. Now it's completely dry. I don't need to use hair dryer, so I will just start and paint the second layer. Okay, her eyes is kind of this grayish blue, so I will use a little bit of cerulean blue, but for the most part, we can get into the detail a little bit later. Okay, and I'll start with her left eyes. So start from the corner of her eyes. There we go. Start with a little blob, and here's her iris color, and I will seems a little bit too wet, so yeah, it's a little bit too wet, so you see this huge bead right here, but let's try to persist here, and then got this eyelid right here, is fold right here. Now I want to leave a little bit of white here. That being said, let's connect shape all the way up to the eyebrow area. Okay. A nice damp brush, soften the edge. Here, just soften that. And same thing here. I will add a little bit of water, soften that edge. Okay. We'll add the eyebrow a little bit later. Okay, the important thing is trying to connect the shape. Okay, you don't want separate shapes. It's all part of the all part of that structure right there. Okay, there we go. Add a little bit of orange, gets a little bit too hot right here, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of orange and some cerulean blue down here. Okay, so got a little bit of cool color, offset all of that warmth here. Now a damp brush, and I'll fade this edge off right here. Okay, bring this in just a little bit. Okay, now I think I'll just paint her eyebrow now, so I'll have a little bit of burnt umber with some yellow ochre. While it is still a little bit damp, I'm just gonna add some color to it. Okay, the thing about the eyebrow is you don't want it to feel like a cutout, so have it naturally blend into the skin tone. I think that's pretty important. I think she is putting on makeup, but it's a painting, so we want to make it look as natural as possible. Okay, so a little bit of transition right here. Okay, let's go to the other side. So right here, the eyelid, give it a little bit of thickness. Remember, we're not painting lines. Okay, this is shape. Okay, it's a pretty small shape, if you would. Okay, a little bit of orange and just bring that shape up. So this eye socket's pretty important that we get that form in. Little hints of the lower eyelid, and should I just bring that up and connect that to the rest of the shape. Okay. And cerulean blue, and just get that iris color in. Okay. This stage is always a little bit of struggle because you still don't have enough contrast and you just kind of get started, so it's gonna look a little bit awkward, and the key is to just have faith and press on and believe that you might end up with a decent painting, and more often or not it will. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but if you just declare lost at this stage, then very likely you're not going to end up with a good looking painting if you don't really believe in yourself. So things might not look that good right now, but I am pretty sure it will turn out alright. Okay, so let's continue down with the eye, and let's start some structure of the nose. So again, she got a pretty distinct nose. Okay, this is the reference. So let's, sorry about that. Okay, so let's focusing on the nose a little bit. And so we got nostril, we got stuff, but let's just focus on the big shape right now, which is just the bottom plane of the nose right here, and just bring this out. Okay, give it an overall coverage down here. Okay, and use a damp brush and just bring that shape down a little bit. So the philtrum area. So have that connect to the philtrum and just have it fade off like that. Okay. Tip of the nose, we can soften just a little bit as well. Okay. Feels a little bit orange, so I will add a touch of red. Okay. Just a touch. They will likely fade off, so I'm not gonna worry too much about it. Now, very quickly, we still want to kind of connect those out. So on the wing of the nose, give it a little bit of suggestion here, bit of playing here. And bring it out. Okay, clean your brush. I need this part to be softened just a little bit more. Seeing the paint flow down, so it's starting to gather there. Okay, I want to fade that off. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of carmine just to give it a little sense of blush. So from the wing of the nose, connect that to her cheek here. Okay, and again, damp brush will soften some of the edges. Might use just a little bit bigger brush right here for the soften. Okay. Now, I don't want to soften everything. Some part, if you leave a little bit of hard edge, is actually fine. Don't try to soften too much. Okay, if you soften everything, it's gonna end up looking like a mush. You actually don't want that. Okay, a little bit of hard edge here and there is fine. It's actually gonna enhance the structure. So that's her other cheek, but I will have it soften on this. Okay. Okay, so a little bit softening down here, and that's looking weird because we don't have lips. So I'm going to paint the lips right now, give it a basic color, carmine, which is a nice kind of pinkish color. We'll add a little bit of orange. Just to neutralize that a little bit. Do a quick test here. Okay, a little bit more orange. I don't want it to be too pink. Okay, this is gonna go. Okay. The upper lip right here. Watch out for the structure here. Okay. Corner of the mouth. We'll worry about those a little bit later. Okay, when we are starting to get some of the dark areas, we'll worry about those later. For now, let's just keep focusing on the bigger shape. Okay. So I'm actually going to soften this edge, connect that to her cheek area. So this sort of face off. Okay, I don't want a very distinct lip line all over the place. Again, you don't want to cut out for the feature. Okay, you want things to kind of blend naturally. You want one of the feature fade off into the skin tone. You want part of the feature fade off into the natural skin tone, instead of have cut out the eyes, cut out the nose, cut out the lips. So okay, so bottom of the lips. So we got a little bit of shadow here at the side, and that's fade off. It's a little bit. Okay, I do like to keep this a hard edge, just so that the structure looks nice. Okay, so her chin. Let's do that. Her chin. We got some bounce light from her jacket, which is kind of like a red color, so it's actually a little bit redder and warmer. So let's get that. Okay, paint a shape here, continue that shape to the side, actually all the way to her jaw. Okay, single shape here. Now very quickly, before it is dry, soften some of the edges with a nice damp brush right here. Okay, just go over it like that. Okay, so soften this as well. Now I think I'm actually going to paint this shape down. Okay, so this part we're going to leave out for her scarf. Okay, the scarf is actually right here. Okay. Okay, so some hard edges here. I wish I could soften that, but I think it's fine. Okay, so I want to have a little bit of hard edge here though. There's a little bit of cast shadow from her hair casting on her face. So let me actually get that in there. Okay, so right here. Soften the bottom of it. Okay. Now I think it's a good time to introduce some dark, like really dark color, just to give us a good reference of how dark things are going to be. So some burnt umber with some cobalt blue, some alizarin crimson. I think this is dark enough. Okay, so let me just introduce a little bit of the dark right here. Okay, be kind of careful right here. Okay, so this is kind of like a reference of how dark things are going to be. Okay, so this side of the hair as well. Just get that dark in to give us a little bit of reference how dark things are going to be. So, and as soon as we introduce this dark, all the shapes doesn't seem that heavy anymore. Okay, and that's what makes it interesting. Okay, a little bit of the water. Let's just soften some of the shapes here. Okay, we don't need the hard edge all over the place. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's go into it a little bit further and let's actually introduce the dark, and our face will start to look a lot better after that. But before we do that, I do think we can bring some of the dark in here. Just have a little bit of transition from hair to skin. Okay, so her forehead is mostly pretty light, but we do want a little bit of occluded shadow from the hair to the forehead. And, give it a little bit of hair here, otherwise it seems like she's bald. That's not good. She's not gonna be happy. Okay, and a bit of the dark here as well. Okay, so now I think we can start to paint some of the dark areas. Okay, so dark is kind of like the bass in the music. So if without bass, without beat, the music will seems. Music doesn't feel like there's a rhythm. Music won't feel like it has enough weight to it. So the dark serves that role. Okay, so again, like the corner of the eye, we get a little bit of dark here. Okay. And also the pupil, let's get that in. And again, we don't want to start all of a sudden start to paint lines. So just some of the areas that we want it to be enhanced, we'll add more to it. So like the fold of the eyelid here. Okay, so this is the part that we start to be a little bit more careful, thinking about where we want the shape to be. Okay, a little bit of cerulean blue here. Let's give it a little bit of coolness here. Okay. And let's give the iris also a little bit of value as well. Okay. Yep, I think it starts to look better. Okay. The eyebrow, I actually like how light it is, so I'm not gonna do too much about it. Okay. But I do think the eyes start to look a lot more dimensional now. Seeing just a few more touches and it's still going to look good. A little bit of shape here and just a little bit on the lower eyelid. Okay, I'm gonna soften this, that. Okay, I'm not talking because I really need to start focus on it a little bit more. Okay, the other eyes. Starting to give it a little bit more value here. Again, the upper eyelid. Now let's give it a little bit more punches. Down here and dark here and the fold of their upper eyelid. Again, avoid painting lines. I mean, even though it's almost like a line, but in your mind, try not to think about lines, think about shapes. Okay, and let's give it a little bit of the eyelashes. I think she's putting on mascara, but I'm not gonna make it look too clean, I should say. Okay. A little bit more eyebrow here. This part. Just blend this down. Okay. Let's give this corner here just a little bit of value, otherwise it's looking too white. Okay, so I'm actually going to use a little bit neutral tint for the pupil because it's really distinct. So I do think half that is going to help. Just fill this part in. eyelid. A little bit more prominent. Okay, so this is, I think this is fine. Let's move on to the nose. Give it a little bit more definition. So for the nostril, again, we don't want to make it too dark, even though in the photo it's actually quite dark. But we just want a little bit of the suggestion. So maybe around the corner area. So like right here. Okay. So I have that, and we have a damp brush, and we'll just soften the bottom of it. Okay, soften that shape. Okay, so we have kind of lighter shape and turning to a little bit darker, and I think that should be enough. Okay, I think the iris here needs to be just a little bit darker. Just a little bit of the dark here. Okay. Now the lip, let's add another layer. Okay, so the upper lip is going to be a little bit darker than the lower lip, so because where the light is from above. So I will just make this a little bit, a touch darker. And the lower lip, I'm actually not going to do too much. Okay, so a damp brush, and I'll just bring this out. I'm not going to paint it all the way out. Okay, I'm just gonna bring this out here, like so. Okay, and now the corner of the lips, those really needs to be, have some dark to it. So here we already got a little bit of that. The center though, we want a little bit of the dark here, so feels like there's some gap between two lips, and over here as well. On the corner of the lips here, it's wet onto wet, but then now it's going to look like it has a little bit of anchor in both sides. Okay, don't draw the line over. Okay, just a couple areas. Okay. And she is smiling, so we're gonna have a little bit of this, I don't know if it's called dimple or a little bit of pinch over here. So okay, it's very lightly. Okay, anything that's kind of like a shadow, we don't want to make it too strong, especially for like a young lady's face. If you make any shadow too strong, it's gonna look like she is have a lot of wrinkles and stuff, and probably not something she will like. Okay. Almost done with the face. A little bit of burnt sienna, so it's less saturated. I think we'll need to add just a little bit more dark here, just trying to unify them a little bit. Just a stroke here, here. Introduce some of the cool color back. Okay. All right. Okay, need to make this cast shadow a little bit stronger. Okay, so just this part, the rest of it, I'm just gonna fade that off. Here we go. Okay. So yeah, let's start to get that sense of light, and I think it's a good time for us to introduce a little bit more shadow underneath here. That will certainly help out the form to pop just a little bit more. So actually I'm gonna start from here, kind of connect to that cast shadow here, and okay, this too dark shape right here. Okay, a little bit more dark here, some more burnt umber. Okay, so between these two, I'm just gonna go over it with a damp brush, have them kind of naturally blend into each other. Okay, her chin, I think this is fine. I actually don't want to add much more. Yeah, there's a lot of bright bounce light here. Okay, her lower lip though, let me actually just give it a tiny little bit of definition. I think it's a little bit too weak. Okay, even though I don't want it to be as dark as the upper lip, I think just a tiny little bit of separation, I think this will help. So just two shapes, and I soften them out. Okay. All right. I think overall that looks fine. We need to start work on the hair. After I did the hair, you will see it's going to make a huge difference. And like how I usually like to do, I like to throw in some color that's not really expected, like this blue right here. See, so a little bit of that blue right here. Something that I like to do when it comes to hair. Throwing a little bit of this really nice cerulean blue from Mission Gold. I just like this color so much. I tend to put that in, even though it doesn't really make much of a sense. But I think it looks good. Okay. Oh, it doesn't really get onto the paper. I wonder why. It's really dry today. Okay. Okay, and now mix a nice mixture of burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and I'm just gonna grab those in here. And again, see how dark this is, so we really don't need to be afraid to go a little bit darker. Okay, especially on this side, which is mostly in the dark. A little bit too weak. I'm gonna add a little bit of red and try to give it some nice stroke here. So just nice and quick stroke. Don't dab around too much. Give it a nice stroke. Have a little bit of cool color down here. I'll try to preserve some shape for the scarf. But this is almost kind of like a graphic-like. It's kind of like a graphic element. Okay, so this edge is not right. Okay, we need to cut in just a little bit, nice and clean. Okay, actually a little bit of clean water. I'm just gonna soften that edge right here. Get a little bit of light back. Okay, so a little bit of alizarin crimson. Go down in here. Define that scarf shape a little bit, just the silhouette, and we can actually bring that shape in. Okay, so cerulean blue, some alizarin crimson, give us this nice purplish color. So we'll bring that shadow shape in to the scarf, the fold of the scarf. Let's try to connect that actually. Well, actually, I think that actually looks pretty good. Connect the shape, like connect the shape is definitely something that we can still do, even though we're painting portrait. I think it's still quite important. Okay, connect that. Okay. Now the scarf, we can just keep it loose for now. We'll define the shape a little bit better later, but yeah. Here's just really quick. It's not picking up colors. It's a little bit hard to paint today for some reason. Okay. The folds and stuff quite complex, so I'm gonna try to simplify it. Okay, squint your eyes a little bit. So this part definitely is a lot lighter, so I'll keep it that way. Okay, the rest of it, there's a little bit of fold here, and I'm just gonna keep it loose for the rest of it. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this hair right here. I kind of forgot about it. Okay, a little bit more paint. So cover part of her forehead to the side and just continue that shape down. so quick brush stroke with some nice dry brush mark to suggest some hair strand. Okay, I'm not going to paint individual hair strand, it's gonna be madness. So right here. Okay. Okay, I have a center brush. I'm gonna paint a few hair strand out. Okay, a little bit more here, right here. Okay, I think we are almost done, believe it or not. Okay, so I'm gonna paint her this kind of deep red jacket, kind of like a burgundy wine color. Looks great, so I'm gonna mix that color red and definitely some burnt umber. I'll add a little bit of alizarin crimson. Just get a little bit of purple tint to it. Okay, let's see how that one looks. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, I think this is good enough. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to paint around some of the hair here, just so that gives a little bit of overlapping, but not gonna try too hard though. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. It's just extra dry today. It's kind of hard to get paint on the paper and stick. Okay, so this side as well. Should gonna spray a little bit of water. I want it to stay wet just a little bit longer because I want to connect this two shape. So over here, down here, a little bit more red. Okay, so to paint around the hair a little bit, get some textures. Okay, so we got some nice bead gathered down here. So what I'm going to do is to smack it and see if it will drip down. There we go. Okay, I think this is good. Just a little bit. A little bit of splashing stuff. This is watercolor. We need to have a little bit of fun. Okay, so this is pretty good. I'm gonna add a little bit of dark on the scarf and while waiting for this to dry. And I think I'm gonna call it a day after I'm done. It's been dragging on long enough. Okay, so a little bit more blue here. A little bit cooler. So here, add some dark into it. By the way, I hope you're all doing pretty well. I haven't done this live for quite a long time. I actually haven't do a portrait for a while. So this is actually turning out better than I thought it would. I am quite happy. I'm in between job right now, so definitely having a little bit more free time. Still, I just think I got a little bit burned out a while back, so still kind of in this kind of recovery mode right now. It doesn't mean I don't want to paint, just like a little bit harder to just quiet myself down and just really commit to a painting. Hey, this is turning pretty good for me today, so I'm happy with how this is turning out today. So I am quite pleased. Okay, a little bit more dark here. I actually think this is fine. I need a lot more dark. A bit here. She looks shy. She did say she's shy. She did said that once. So maybe she'll be happy to know that. Actually, she told me something that's very interesting once. She said when she was a kid, she thought that if she stared at the blue sky long enough, her eyes would turn blue. I thought that was a very romantic way of thinking things. So maybe it works. I mean, her eye is not exactly super blue, but got a little bit of blue tint to it, so maybe it did work. Okay. Okay, so still a little bit damp, but I think if I make the mixture thick enough, it should be fine. Okay, so I just want to give some definition of her coat actually. So a little bit of thickness as well as some shadow underneath here. Okay, so just by doing that, you start to see the separation of form. And okay, again, try to paint around the hair a little bit, preserve a little bit of hair string highlight. Okay, good. This though, I want to soften a little bit, so some clean water, Just go down like that, so it'll feel like the shadow get darker as it tuck underneath that color. Okay, so same thing here. I'm gonna add a little bit of dark here. Just to separate that with her scarf. Okay, we're almost done, and I'm getting tired too, and it's getting late, so I need to wrap this up. Okay, let's soften this edge right here. And so the combination of soft and hard edge, that will kind of feel like forms turning. So I think this is good. Okay, let me try to fix this shape a little bit. This kind of bothered me just a little. Okay, I think this is pretty much it. I do think we need a little bit of background though. Okay, let me first erase some of this pencil line. Let's make this look just a little bit cleaner. But I do think we need a little bit of background. Not much though, just something over here so it doesn't just white background and like a person cut out to it. So I think her background is kind of like trees and stuff, so I might introduce just a little bit of the green tone to it, but not like big saturated green, so maybe a little bit more on the turquoise side. Okay, and again, this is just the background, so I don't want anything really defined, so just something like that, so it doesn't feel like there's just white void. So it doesn't feel like just like a white void behind her. Okay, just something like this. I think this is okay, a little bit more intense here. A little bit of splash. Okay. Okay, so I come back the next day and I found a little bit of problem. I think the forehead is a little bit too tall. Despite that, I tried to kind of compensate the camera distortion. I think I overdid it. So I'm gonna see if I can actually try to fix that. So fortunately, if we just kind of make that hair part a little bit bigger, it should be fine. But it should be 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 here. So it should be a lot lower. So like so. So that's the saying. Sometimes you think you did okay, but after you come back the next day, something might pop out when you got a pair of fresh eyes. So again, so not that big of a deal. I think we can definitely try to fix that, to adjust that, since it is a much lighter area. We can paint over with darker value quite easily. So what I'm gonna do is to still have this dirty water. That's fine. Painting a darker value anyways. So I'm gonna mix a dark value here, burnt umber, cobalt blue, and some alizarin crimson. And we'll just just add a little bit more here up here, and I think that helps quite a bit already. So it's not a big change, but portrait is weird like that. A little bit of the change goes a long way. So that's what I say in the beginning of this painting. It can be off just a little bit, a few centimeters, a few millimeters actually, and I can change a whole lot. So that's why portrait is difficult for me as well, because a lot of times you miss out something, miss out a few little details. Something is off by a few millimeters and the whole thing can just look really weird. And sometimes you can't quite pinpoint what happened. But definitely not the easiest thing. Also, since while we are doing some adjustments, I can just add a little bit more dark here. Yesterday I was trying to wrap it up in a rush. Just add a little bit more here. Just add just a little bit more kind of dimensionality to it. Okay, bit more of a dark here as well. Just want to get a little bit more a sense of depth and sense of overlapping here. Okay. Bring this down with a damp brush. We don't want it to be a hard shape, so it's a little bit of softening. Just clean water. Okay, hope this is good enough. Again, thank you guys for watching. Saved me a little bit of editing time this time, and I hope you enjoyed this. This is actually a pretty long video, so I don't know if you guys like that, but once in a while I'll do something like that just to save some editing time, and as well as just really show you the process of the whole thing. It can be quite long, quite lengthy, but I hope you enjoy that. If you're new here, feel free to like and subscribe if you want to, and also check out my website at cafewatercolor.com. Sign up to get my Fast Track Watercolor PDF guide. Thank you, and I will see you guys next time.